Hello children. Today we will read The Merchant of Venice Act 3 Scene 2. Now we will start with Bassanio's speech. Last time we read that Bassanio is going to choose the cascades. And by that time Portia tells her servants to play a music to give an indirect hint to Bassanio that he will use his head and heart. He will not be guided by the outward appearances or by his eyes. And here, as Bassanio is a true lover, he will not, whether he thinks about this, takes this guide or not, guidance or not, but he will use his head and heart. And now we will read Bassanio's speech, how he chooses the cascade. So Bassanio, so may the outward shows be least themselves, the world is still deceived with ornament. He says that the world is always deceived by outward shows, which are actually not what they look like or what they appear to be like. And the world is still deceived with ornament. The world is still deceived or misguided by the ornament means outward show. In law, what plea so tainted and corrupt? But being seasoned with a gracious voice obscures the show of evil. Then he gives examples how the world is deceived by the outward appearances or ornaments. First he says about law. In the field of law, if a case is more corrupt, the most dishonest and evil or foul, then that is obscured or hidden by a gracious voice, by an eloquent speech of the lawyer. How much dishonest, how much bad is the case, or the lawyer fights the case with that much eloquent voice to hide the show of evil. Then second example he gives in religion. What damned error! But some sober brew will bless it and approve it with a text, hiding the grossness with a fair ornament. In the field of religion also, what damned the error means how great is the sin. But some sober bro, a pious looking person like a priest, a bishop, or a holy person, will bless it and approve it with a text hiding the grossness. A pious looking person, a holy person, or a priest will bless it. He will bless it and he will justify it with the text. With the text means giving example from the Holy Book or from the Bible, hiding the grossness with fair ornament, and he will hide that evil with giving some examples or giving some outward appearance to that sin. There is no vice so simple but assumes some mark of virtue on his outward parts. Then Bassanio comes to the conclusion. He says that there is no vice so simple but assumes. He says that no vice appears so simply to our eyes or we cannot feel it, but it assumes or it takes some mark of virtue on his outward parts. It is obscured, it is hidden by some mark of virtue or goodness on its outward part. When inwardly searched, we will find that the seriousness of that sin. So no vice appears so simple to our eyes and we cannot know it because it always has some outward good appearance. How many cowards whose hearts are all as false as stairs of sand, where Yet upon their chins the beards of Hercules and frowning Mars, who in word search have livers white as milk, and these assume but velos excrement to render them redoubted. Then he gives example that how many cowards means those who are not brave, opposite of coward is brave, but how many cowards means those who are not brave, whose heart are as false as sand, as stairs of sand, whose hearts are as false as the stairs of sand. Stairs of sand, you cannot walk on these stairs, these things are false. And he compares that the hearts of these cowards to the stairs of sand, which is not valuable or which is not good enough for walking, as stairs of sand, where yet upon their chins the beards of Hercules and frowning Mars. Hercules, you know, the Superman of Greece, and Mars is the god of wars. And they are said to be very brave and courageous. And here these cowards, whose heart are as false as stairs of sand, you cannot rely on them. They are not reliable. Wear means put on, yet upon their chins means upon their face, the beards of Hercules and frowning Mars. They keep the beards like Hercules and Mars, who inward searched have livers white as milk. And when you search them inwardly, they will have the livers white as milk. And why it is said livers white as milk? Because the Elizabethans believe that if a man is courageous, then his liver is red. And if one is not courageous or a coward, then his liver is white as milk. And these assume but velos excrement to render them redoubted. And these cowards, inwardly they are very coward, their liver is white as milk, and to outside they keep their outward appearance, they keep the beard like Hercules and Mars to show them redoubted. Redoubted means formidable or courageous or brave. So these people assume but velos excrement, valor means strength, or the brave person's outward growth. Beard is the outward growth, and they keep that outward growth on their face to render them, to show them that they are courageous. Look on beauty, and you shall see it is purchased by the weight, which therein works a miracle in nature, making them lightest that wear most of it. Then he says that in field of beauty, in case of beauty, the ladies buy the things from a chemist's shop by weight. They have to pay the price according to the weight of the things, of these aids. And he says that look on beauty, and you shall see it is purchased by the weight, which therein works a miracle in nature. And when you put or use a little bit of these cosmetics, then they work as a miracle in nature. It brings a great change, which therein works a miracle in nature, making them lightest that wear most of it. And again he says that if you put to a limited quantity, it works as a miracle in nature. But if you use most of it, then it makes the lady or the woman lightest. It will increase its weight as it is purchased by weight, but it will make light in character. So are those crisp, snaky, golden locks, which make such wanton gambols with the wind upon supposed fairness. Then gives another example of beautiful ladies. he says that so are those crisped, snaky, golden locks. He says that these crisply means the curly, snaky golden locks. Snaky golden locks, snaky means which calls like snakes. The golden locks, locks means here hairs. The golden hairs, the curly golden hairs, which make such wanton gambols with the wind, which makes some lively movements, wanton gambols, the lively movements with the movement of the wind, upon supposed fairness, often known to be the dowry of a second hand, the skull that bred them in the sepulchre. And he says that when we find a beautiful lady with curly golden hairs which makes lively movements on their head with the movement of wind, sometimes it is found that this supposed fairness, this supposed beauty, often known to be the dowry of a second hand, it is known as the possession, or it is found that it is the possession of a second hand. This is not her original hair. It belongs to somebody else. The second hair, the skull that bred means the skull that grew on that hair. Skull that bred them means grew that hair is in the sepulchre, is in the tomb or already dead. So it is a custom in England that the ladies wear wigs on their head to look beautiful, and sometimes they use the wig on their head of golden snaky hair to look beautiful, but actually they are considered, they are supposed to be beautiful, but actually those hair do not belong to them, that belongs to some other head who is already buried in the tomb. Thus ornament is but the guiled shore to a most dangerous sea. And again he says that this ornament or this outward appearance is just like a guiled shore, a deceiving or a treacherous seashore to a most dangerous sea. The beauteous scarf veiling an Indian beauty. And he says that as sometimes people are misguided by the beautiful shore and they face the danger in the sea, and a beautiful scarf that veils to an Indian beauty. And here Indian beauty, Shakespeare has a wrong idea about the Indians, and he thought that the West Indians were the Indians, those who are very black. So he uses this and he says that an Indian woman who is considered to be very beautiful, as she has a veil on her head, you cannot see the face, but in a word, the seeming truth which cunning times put on to entrap the wisest. And here he says that as a treacherous shore leads a man towards the dangerous sea, and if you see a veiling woman, you think that that woman is beautiful, but when you lift up the veil, you see that she is not beautiful. So in this way, in a word, means in short, the seeming truth which cunning times put on to entrap the wisest, and this false appearance of truth has been put to entrap the wisest, to deceive the wisest person. Suppose a person will be guided by outward show, then he will be trapped or he will be deceived. Therefore, thou gaudy gold, hard food for Midas, I will none of thee. Then he says there are three caskets, gold, silver and lead. And Bassanio is saying that therefore he will not be deceived by outward show. And he says therefore, thou gaudy gold, you showy gold, hard food for Midas. And all of you have known the story of Midas. He was greedy for gold and asked a boon to God that whatever he will touch, that will be transformed to gold. And at last he touched his own food. Food became gold. His own daughter became gold. And he begged the god to take back the boon, and everything became normal. So here he says that thou gaudy gold, you showy gold, you are the hard food for Midas. I will none of thee, nor none of thee, thou pale and common roads between man and man. The silver cascade is there, and he says that I will have none of you, neither the gold nor the silver. And to silver cascade he says that you are the common roads, you are the ordinary slave that passes from man to man, and the silver coins are there, and these silver coins pass from one hand to another hand. It is just like a slave in the hand of man. So he says that I will have none of you. He rejects gold, saying that you are hard food for Midas, and he rejects the silver, saying that you are a common slave between man and man, passes from one hand to another. But thou Meager led. Meager means the unattractive led. But you, thou means you, but you unattractive led, which rather threatenest than dost promise aught. Thy paleness moves me more than eloquence. Then he says that you unattractive gold, which rather threatenest than dost promise aught. And you know the inscriptions on the three caskets. Gold casket says that who chooses me will get what many men desire. This gives a promise. Silver says that who chooses me will get as much as he deserves. There is also a promise. But the lead casket says that who chooses me will give and hazard all he has. So in this way it threatens. So he says that you unattractive lead, which rather threatens than dost promise ought. Ought means anything. So rather than promising anything, it threatens. He says that if you choose me, then you will give and hazard, put everything in a risk what you have. And he says that thy paleness moves me more than eloquence. So he says that your paleness moves me or attracts me more than eloquence, more than the eloquent words written or inscribed on the other two caskets, gold and silver. And here choose I, joy be the consequence. And at last he came to the conclusion that he will choose the lead casket, and he prays to God that joy, happiness will be the result of his choice. Portia, aside. And here aside means this is a speech by Portia, but it is not meant for the persons or the characters present on the stage. This is meant for the audience. And Portia says, how all the other passions flit to air as doubtful thoughts and rash embraced despair and shuddering fear and green-eyed jealousy. And we know very well when Bassanio is engaged in the choice of caskets, Portia was very much worried because her luck depended on the luck of Bassanio. If he chooses the right caskets, then happiness will come to both of them, to Bassanio as well as Portia. Suppose Bassanio is chooses the wrong casket, then Portia will lose her love. So when Bassanio goes to choose the lead casket, that is the right one containing the portrait of Portia, Portia says to herself, which the audience can hear, she says how all the other passions flit to air. Now she is happy, and she says that the other passions now vanish to air, now disappear. What other passions? As doubtful thoughts, she had some doubt in her mind whether Bassanio will choose the right casket or not. And the rash embraced despair. The rash embraced despair, that is the rashly conceived despair or hopelessness, and shuddering fear, the trembling fear, and green-eyed jealousy. So these are the negative thoughts that were or emotions that were in her. They flew into the air, they vanished into the air as Bassanio moved towards the lead casket and is ready to choose the lead casket. O love, be moderate, allay thy ecstasy. In measure reign thy joy, scant this excess. I feel too much thy blessing, make it less, for fear I forfeit. Then she says that, O love, she prays to Lord of love, O love, be moderate. Allay thy ecstasy. You be moderate. Moderate means remain in the mean position, neither too much nor less. Allay thy ecstasy means you diminish your excessive joy. In measure reign thy joy. In measure, in a proper measure, in a proper quantity, you shower your joy on me. Scant this excess means you just restrain this excess of joy. I feel too much thy blessing. She says that, oh Lord, you are showering your blessings so much on me that I feel the excess of it. Make it less, for fear I surfeit. And we know excess of anything is very bad. And she says to love that, oh love, I feel the excess blessing of yours. So I pray you make it less, because I fear the surfeit of it or excess of your blessings, which is harmful. Bassanio. And Bassanio chooses the lead casket. What find I here? He opens the leaden casket. He opens the lead casket and says, what I find here? And he is surprised. And he is also full of happiness. He says, fair Portia's counterfeit. What did he find inside the casket? The portrait of fair Portia. What demigod hath come so near creation? He could not believe to his eyes or to himself. And he says that what demigod means what divine person has come near the creation. Means no human being can come near this creation. Move these eyes. Means these eyes are moving, though it is a portrait, though it is a picture. Bassanio feels as if the eyes are moving, or whether riding on the balls of mine, seem they in motion. And he says that the eyes are moving, or being riding on my own eyes or eyeballs, my eyeballs, they seem to be in motion, or they seem to be moving. Here are severed lips. Severed lips, now he praises to the lips of Portia. He says that here are the parted lips, parted with sugar breath. And how they are parted? They are parted with the sweet breath. So sweet a bar, so sweet a bar. Bar means barrier or hindrance. So sweet a bar should sunder such sweet friends. And he describes that these two lips are parted with a sweet breath, and they are separated. He says that these two lips are two friends, and they are separated by the sweet breath. Here in her hairs the painter plays the spider, and hath woven a golden mesh to entrap the hearts of men, faster than grants in cobwebs. And he goes to praise her hairs then. Here in her hairs the painter plays the spider. The painter painted the hair, the golden locks of Portia so beautifully that he says that the painter had played the role of the spider, as the spider weaves the cobweb, and the small insects, flies, gnats are caught in the cobweb. Like this, he says that the hair of Portia is painted just like a spider's cobweb, and the painter played the role of the spider and painted these cobwebs, and hath woven a golden mesh, and the painter has woven a golden mesh, a golden net or web, to entrap the hearts of men. So beautifully he had painted the golden hair of Portia, which will act like a web or like a net to entrap the heart of men, faster than gnats in cobwebs. As soon as as soon as a gnat or a fly insect goes near the cobweb, it is trapped in it. So Bassanio compares the golden hair of Portia to a web, and the heart of man to the gnats or the insects. That as soon as the gnat is caught in the web, like this, the heart of a man will be caught in the hair of Portia, the net of Portia's hair. But her eyes, and again he praises to eyes, but her eyes, how could he see to do them? And he refers to the painter. And he is surprised, amazed. He says that how could the painter do or was able to paint the eyes of Portia? They are so beautiful. Having made one, methinks, it should have power to steal both his and leave itself unfinished. And he says that I think perhaps after painting one eye, the power of Portia's eye would have stolen the having made one, methinks it should have power to steal both his. Means Portia's eyes are so beautiful that it would have power to steal the eyesight or the power from both the eyes of the painter and leave itself unfinished. And perhaps the portrait is incomplete, only one eye is painted properly. So Bassanio says that one eye had the power to steal the power of both the eyes of the painter, therefore he had left it incomplete. Yet look, how far the substance of my praise doth wrong this shadow in underprizing it. And he says that yet still look, how far the substance of my praise refers to Portia, real Portia, doth wrong this shadow in underprizing it. The real Portia is much more beautiful than this portrait. In underprizing it, so far this shadow means the portrait, doth limp behind the substance, and the portrait is quite inferior to real Portia in beauty. Here is the rule, the continent and summary of my fortune. And he finds a scroll of paper inside the casket, and he takes that scroll and says that here is a scroll, the continent and summary of my fortune. So he thinks that this is the summary of his fortune. What is in his fortune, that is written in that scroll. So next time we will read after this. Thank you.